So over the weekend, we got our first glimpse of rugby league for this season, with this year, and like honestly, overall, I was actually really impressed with the quality of football, that sort of thing, and just how competitive the games were. And I don't know whether it's because it's the preseason challenge, like Brandon Smith in his interview post game in the Roosters Storm game was like, nah, like we don't really care, that sort of thing. But I don't know. For me, at least, like this is probably the best quality football I've seen in the trials that I can remember. Maybe that's because I don't remember watching that many trials. I mean, like obviously there's lots of errors and stuff, but it's football in February. You have to expect that kind of thing. But let's just go through today and have a little chat about every single trial game over the weekend and who impressed me and what teams I think, based off one trial, are looking really good. So if we start from the top, we've got the Warriors versus Tigers now. Warriors smoked the Tigers here, and I think it got a lot of Warriors fans excited. There's a few good players for them. I think Luke Metcalf stood up and played quite well as Montoya played really well. I mean, he absolutely flattened Charlie Staines. Vallejo played good in the second half as well. For the Tigers, look, it's disappointing that you got beat by that much, but you look at the team list and there's not really, it's definitely not your first grade team for this season, so you sort of take it with a grain of salt, but you still would like to be a bit more competitive because Warriors didn't really have too strong of a side either. But guys, for the Tigers that I thought impressed me, Stefano looked really, really good. So if he get back to his 2021 form, this Tigers 4-pack's going to be scary. Fanua Pole as well, I thought looked really good. Big, strong ball carrier, good runner meters and stuff. Decent in defense as well. Justin Matamua, he tried hard. He might have tried a bit too hard. You can see that it's there. You can see he's got a lot of potential, but probably just off game. But if you're the Warriors, it's good signs. They've got the Storm this week in the trials, so that'll be the real test of how good their squad is, because they're probably close to their top teams. But I don't know. Not a bad game to get us kicked off for the season. Now, the second game was the Knights versus the Sharks. Now, if you're a Knights fan, I would be quite disappointed. They didn't play very well. Their 4-pack, especially, their middles looked soft, and they had both the Saifiti boys out there and Jaden Brayley. Not a very good sign. Lockie Fitzgibbon played as well. It wasn't very good. Players for me though, a guy I'd never even heard of before, Ben Tolte, actually surprised me. He played quite well. For the Sharkies, right? You get rid of Lockie Miller, and I got no backup fullback. Daniel Atkinson was unreal. It's probably one of the best players over the whole round, I think, for me. Every time he had the ball, something was going to happen. He was really good, as well as Thomas Hazelton. I was quite impressed by it, but overall, I think the Sharks, you can tell they've got a bit of a more of a deep-rooted system now. Next man up mentality is starting to kick in through there. They've got even Jaden Barrell had a pretty good game. Toby Rudolph was impressive. Now over to probably one of the games of the round in the trials. Rabbitohs versus Manly was a super game. I think for me, for the Rabbitohs, that Dion Tialpa, I think is how you say his name. If it's not, I'm so sorry, but he looked unreal. I've literally made videos and points and stuff saying that I don't know how the how the Rabbits would go if Latrell and Cody Walker get injured at the same time. But bro, if Tialpa plays a couple games, man, I'm fine with him playing first grade this season. He looked unreal. Blake Taff was really good too. But also, there's a couple forwards. These guys that I've heard of and have big raps on, but Tallis Duncan and Ben Lovett really, really impressed me. Especially Tallis Duncan. He looks to be a star. So as he played 13, and Cameron Murray is going to be there, but I'm pretty sure he can play on an edge as well. He looks like a star for the future. I'm pretty sure he's only young too as well, so good signs there. For Manly, Jake Toby was really, really good too, so it's he's going to end up being your third choice fullback because you got KO Weeks there as well, but there's good fullback stocks. Tui Pilotu ran for 200 metres, so honestly, he has to be on an edge for me this year for Manly. Cooper Johns was really good, as well as Gordon Chankum-Tong impressed me. It was quite live there at dummy half. Good defensively for a little bloke as well, and Ben Trbojevic showed that he's good enough. He lives up to his Trbojevic name. He was really good, and I think he's in for a big year. As well as Viliami Fafita impressed me off the bench too. I think he was quite good. So there's a few little there's good points to take out for both teams there. I think the way the Manly played a lot more lively and looked a lot better overall. It's the first trial. We'll see how they go this weekend, but I know I was impressed by both these sides, which is good so early in the season. Now Panthers Eels, I was actually a little bit disappointed by this game. Wasn't too impressed, but in saying that, this is pretty much Panthers 18 team from last year. I think with the Panthers, I was a bit disappointed by how little River got involved. Especially he got outshone by the other centre Tom Jenkins heaps. I don't know. I was a bit disappointed by that. I wanted to see how he went in centre because I think they're moving him there because they want to get him in the first grade team somewhere for next season. With Crichton going, it's sort of the only spot you can really see him going in there. Thought Luke Summerton out of dummy half in the first half was quite good for Penrith. But yeah, there wasn't really too many other people that really stood out for me there. It went over to Eels. Sean Russell was good. He had 200 plus metres. Zach Sini had a couple of tries, but the rest of the players I wasn't really blown away with. Offa Hickey Ogden was okay, but Josh Hodgson looked a bit off the pace. It was his first game in 12 months, so can't really blame him for that. But I would have liked Sean Lane and Ryan Madison to have a bit more of an impact, considering they're consistently playing first grade. But I mean, again, it's their first hit out in a long time, so you got to take everything that you see here with a grain of salt. Over to Dragons versus St. Helens. Now, as a Dragons fan, obviously it's disappointing that we lost, but I wasn't too disheartened by it. There's a fair few players though that I was actually really impressed by. Trey Stewart was good. He had a couple different moments where he dropped the ball, but the thing with that, it was more positioning and being a bit nervous under the high ball rather than actually his skill set. So I think that's something you can train super easy. So I'm not too worried about that. Then you got Zach Lomax and Stooley switching sides. I think is quite interesting. I think it's to get Lomax more involved with the ball because left centers get more ball. They're saying it's defensively. I don't think it makes too much difference defensively. Laurie tried hard, which was really good to see. Ben Murdoch-Masila, I was actually really impressed with, but Billy Burns, and Jaden Hunt, they weren't fantastic. But I think a guy like Toby Couchman is a bit of a smoky to play some NRL this year. He was really, really good for a young bloke, and I was quite impressed by him. And there's a second row spot available there, so I wouldn't be surprised if he gets that. Now moving over to the 4 Sunday games we had, Storm versus Roosters. So for the Storm, in the first half especially, I thought Tyron Richard was really good at 5'8", and I think he could definitely play there at the start of the season if they move Munster to fullback with Pappenhausen out. But with Pappenhausen out, this guy, Sua Fa'alogo, he could definitely make the first grade team for the first couple of rounds. He was so good. He ran 200 and something metres and got taken off for 20 minutes to go. He was unreal. I think defensively, Bronson Garlick and Jordan Grant were quite impressive too. But yeah, other people for the Storm. Christian Welch was good to see and get some minutes back. That's probably the extent of the players that impressed me for Storm. Now, over at the Roosters, Ethan King was okay, showed some glimpses. Jake Turpin is going to be handy for them. He was actually quite good in the halves. Who else was there? There was Siwa Wong. I was just impressed by just the physical presence of him. I think he's going to be, we're going to be talking about him the next 10 years. Elliot Elzarkham as well was really good. Well, yeah, Brandon Smith, Sam Walker, and Victor Radley all came on the field together. They looked really good. Egan Butcher as well played well. But yeah, that was a kind of game where in 6 months' time, that's going to be a ripper of a game. Obviously, it's the trial match and that sort of thing. But I know there's good signs for the Roosters and the Storm too. But I think if you're a Roosters fan, you're looking more at that game for combinations because the teams that they put out, the Storm had a lot more first graders out. It was more of your fringe players and your in your reserve players and stuff for the Storm. Well, it was for the Roosters as well, but not so much. Now over to Raiders versus the New Look Bulldogs, and the Bulldogs really impressed me. To be honest, they looked revitalised, revigorated, and I mean it was against Raiders mostly reserve grade, but I thought they were outstanding to be honest. Now for the Raiders, poor old Xavier Savage has broken his jaw. And letting go of Chance now looks a little bit silly because I don't really know who their backup fullback is. I suppose you put Albert Hopewadi there. Yeah, I think that's the way to go. Albert Hopewadi or even Brad Morcus. I know in junior footy he played a lot. He played centres and stuff, but he's played a lot of fullback as well. I was impressed again by James Schiller and Brad Snyder. They both impressed me last year when they got a run in first grade. But I'll tell you what, there's a couple of players that I wasn't. Corey Horsburgh didn't play very well. Unfortunately for him. I don't know, just the Raiders as a whole didn't really impress me that much. But the Doggies, Paul Adlamotti did okay with his touches. Josh Reynolds, he's going to be great for that team. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets picked for round one somewhere in the side. Reid Marnie was fantastic. Looked like he'd been there for the last 5 years rather than the last 2 months. Jacob Preston was really, really good. Lived up to like the hype that he's like been created around him recently. But yeah, overall for the doggies, like putting on 34 points in a trial, most of it was in the first half. I'm pretty impressed, and I think that like there's a lot of good signs there. Anyway, there's reasons to be excited. Over to the second last game of the round, Cowboys versus the Dolphins. This was actually a really good game, bit of back and forth, a lot of exciting footy played. For me, for the Cowboys, Tommy Chester was decent. He was quite solid. Tom Duffy, he looks like he will be the perfect replacement for Chad Townsend once the time comes for Townsend to hang up his boots. He looked really, really good. And I think it won't happen for another couple of years as well, which means he's going to have another couple of years of learning under Townsend, a premiership winning half, and just like more experience and time playing with playing footy. So I think man, this is another team that they've got like the next man up mentality now. Number 8 for them, like Cedrugu, again, I'm butchering these guys' names, but he was really, really good. Like, just tireless work ethic was going all day. Riley Price really impressed me as well. He has to play first grade this year, in my opinion. Moving over to the Dolphins, Jack Bostock I thought was played quite well. He got put into fullback and then it was a bit shaky, but he hasn't played much fullback in his life, from what I know. Isaiah Katoa again impressed me. I think he has to be the starting 7 or starting 6 at least for the Dolphins this year. He's just so good. Who else? Harrison Graham impressed me too. Ray Stone was really, really, really good. Vanna Stafade, as always, was quite solid and just a wrecking ball. But Mason Teague is the guy that I'm like, he has to play a lot of minutes this year in first grade. He's only 18, was part of the SG ball team with Isaiah Katoa last year, but he was really good. Quite impressed with him as a young bloke. But I think as well, one thing with the Dolphins was like, the Cowboys had so much ball on their line pretty much the whole game, and they just kept him out right until the end. And it's like that's sort of, I think we're starting to see the identity that the Dolphins are trying to build over there. Like under Wayne Bennett, they're going to want to play tough, resilient footy, rather than like the last team that came in, the Titans, who we're about to speak about in a second. They sort of want like the Gold Coast, the Glamour Club, like the playing like fancy footy kind of thing. It was like there was no defense, just vibes kind of stuff. So I think it's good. Like, they looked competitive. I mean, it was reserve grade versus reserve grade, really. Obviously, the Dolphins had a few more players in there, but it's the first time these guys have ever played together properly. So, like, they're going to have a bit more first graders there. I think like they'll be a lot more competitive than people think. On to the last game of the round, Broncos versus Titans. Broncos looked so good in the first half. They were just covered up. Reece Walsh was fantastic, and his kicks and stuff was like, if you're a Broncos fan, you got to be excited that Reece Walsh is back. However, him laying down and conceding that try, not a good look. Need to scratch that out of the game, but again, easy fix. Tony Staggs, Herbie Farmworth, they were okay. Seemed like they did have a pretty strong side. Didn't really set the world alight, but Shalom Offal, I don't know how you say his last name, but like he's a guy that like played a few games against and stuff. So it's good to see him killing it on his training and trial up at the Broncos. He was good again. Tristan Saylor was quite impressive as well once he got on the field. For the Titans, look, there's a couple red flags with how they played in the first half, but then second half they were really good. I thought Khan Pereira, with the touches he got, was he was decent anyway. Like, you can see like where all the raps are for him. I would like to see David Fifita have more of an impact, but Tom Weaver really impressed me actually. Like, when he came on, he looked really, really good, and it just creates that headache for the selection for Jason Holbrook. It's a good headache to have, having about 4 or 5 halves all vying for the 2 spots, but do you end up going with Tom Weaver and Kieran Foran as your halves? Who knows? But again, for both teams, there's good signs to take out of it. There's also some things that you can identify to work on. But overall, I think like both those teams will be competitive this year for sure.